Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is the Planning Board meeting of November 1st, 2022. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of the Planning Board members. Down to my left is Doug Breskin. Next to Doug, Peter Goodwin. Mike Hodder is the Vice Chairman of the Planning Board, and to my right, John Thurston. Brad Harriman is the representative from the Board of Selectmen, and Julie Jacobs is our alternate. Julie, would you be willing to sit in for Vaughn tonight?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm Kathy Barnard. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing. This is Carroll County Construction, Cosmic Cove LLC, 12-point Luck Circle, tax map 214001-033. This is a public hearing for case 2022-12, and it's a special permit for a dug-in boathouse. Is the applicant here? Okay, if you would just introduce yourself, and then if you could kind of describe the project, tell us how you'll be restoring the area once the boathouse is in, and things of that.
Okay, good evening. My name is Tyler Phillips. I'm here on behalf of Cosmic Cove regarding a 900 square foot dug-in boathouse. Just to start, this project was commenced, the development of the lot was commenced about a year ago, and they've had plans to construct this boathouse for some time. I first was involved in the project by obtaining a shoreland permit, which really only covers the earthwork on the land. The boathouse itself was designed subsequent to that. They knew they had a footprint of 900 square feet to work with, but that was subsequently designed and permitted. And what you see here on this plan is the wetland permit, the plans associated with the wetland permit application. This boathouse location was chosen because along the shorefront, there are other areas where there actually are vegetated wetlands. However, in this location, it's one of the few areas that's where the wetlands are only from the top of the bank, essentially the edge of the lake. So this seemed to be a favorable place to place the boathouse, and so they're here before you to ask for a special use permit so that they can construct a boathouse in an area that lies within the wetland.
Could you just describe a little about the access down to the boathouse and how it will be revegetated?
Sure.
It comes out.
No,
that comes out of the holder.
Okay, all right. So, see if I can do this so everyone can see. The house sits here, driveway enters in this location. There is an existing beach in this vicinity right here. And this is a large piece of granite ledge here, exposed granite ledge with some small evergreens located around its periphery. This has had informally a fire pit and that kind of stuff. So it's always kind of been used as a waterfront area. What we permitted was a narrow enough access that we could get an excavator in there to do the excavation of the foundation. Again, the boathouse is a dug-in boathouse, so of course it doesn't go out over the water. It's placed on land, and then the earth is dug out from within its intended foundation. So we provided a 12-foot wide access in which several trees will be cut. Those trees, even with cutting those trees, it still provides the necessary points to meet state shoreland standards. There, of course, would be trees. Well, they've been cut. These are trees that were approved as part of the original shoreline permit application, the approved shoreline permit application with the town. So this area is now ready for the placement of the foundation. When it's done, areas will be vegetated back and stabilized. The area around here, this is identified as, this is a temporary disturbance area, meaning it's an area that will revert back to its original ground surface footprint and be vegetated. Largely, these areas are, pine needles and forest duff. So I think the idea typically is when you revegetate it, it's to hold the soil in place, but over time, that natural forest stuff comes back and provides the same buffering capacity as it would have in its original state. So I think, typically there is a stabilization approach. The duration and longevity of that grass, it usually fades out with the pine needles and that kind of stuff that comes in.
Okay, so it'll be sort of just a pathway down to the boathouse.
Well, this is a 12-foot wide access.
Yeah, right, I see that.
Yes,
yeah.
And in time, I mean, as it is now, there are only a couple saplings there. It goes up over a piece of ledge. It might be a little difficult to grow, replant with trees and so forth. So we have here temporary access as previously approved, and blah, 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 to be restored upon completion, less than 6-foot wide access path, shoreline permit plan. So when it's completed, it'll be neck down to 6
Okay.
feet wide, which is again allowed under state shoreline rules.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, in any application for a special use, the salient point to cover by an applicant is no alternative location on the site more appropriate or less damaging to the natural environment than the one chosen in the application. Could you address that?
I could, and I will, or at least try to. I think it's helpful to, again, look back at the original. You don't see the whole shorefront here, but a little bit of magic here. See if I can show you the plan. This is zoomed out. This is a zoomed out view. This is what we refer to as an existing conditions plan, meaning this is the plan before anything was built on the site. This is the existing cul-de-sac, the location of a former gravel access, which more or less was retained for the driveway. The driveway comes down here. The site of the boathouse is here. This frontage along this shoreline, as you can see, maybe not very well, but perhaps on the plans.
We have plans.
If you note the wetland line itself, the actual, not the buffer, but the wetland line. I don't know if that line stands out on your plans, but there are actual wetlands, not just the shore of the lake, that come back quite a bit from the shoreline. This is the lake here, the shoreline itself. So when you look at the site, any other location on the site would be directly impacting more wetlands and through that more wetland buffer as well. So there really isn't there's a beach. You could put it where the beach is, existing beach, but other than that, if you look at the distance, the wetlands come back quite a ways from the shoreline, whereas the location they picked, it's essentially the shoreline is what we're impacting. So this area here, short of, I guess, building on this really steep area here, which was problematic or would be problematic from an environmental standpoint, the state doesn't want you to build something on over 25% slopes. This area met both that requirement of being under 25%, and also, if you look across the entire site, would actually result in less impacts to vegetated wetlands.
The beach location you just mentioned, central on your plan, is that a man-made beach or a naturally occurring beach?
I don't know. It's been there for quite some time, before the property was developed.
Is it a perched beach?
No.
No, if it's not a perched
probably not,
beach,
no.
then why is that not an appropriate location for the boathouse as opposed to the one in the shorefront area, which appears, at least from the plan, not to have been previously disturbed?
Well, it's quite shallow through here, so it's quite shallow actually off this whole area here. As a matter of fact, this is represented as a peninsula just because of the elevations, but that's a rock outcrop, so there's a lot of shoals right out there. So That's something that'd be difficult for access for boats, I believe, if the boathouse is placed right there. So this whole area tends to be pretty shallow. It's a little bit deeper out here. I'm not really familiar with this area. Again, it's so steep down there, steep and ledgy, it wasn't chosen.
Other questions? Peter, just a second.
If you end up putting a boathouse in a sandy area, a beach, and you have appropriate winds and things like that, it's going to really affect how the beach ends up forming and remains. So to me, to put it on a beach which is relatively shallow is going to definitely change things. Is that an appropriate thought?
I'm not so sure that it would itself change, but I believe for some of the same reasons, that being that if you have movable sediments, as beaches are, finer grain material than rock, that wave action and so forth could result in coming to continue to fill in, making that, because again, the boathouse has to be on shore and then dug out. So the area that would have to continue
Can you hold that mic up?
the area that continued to have to be maintained would extend out quite a bit further than that naturally, which is a little bit steeper.
John?
Tyler, could you go back to the previous page and talk about the 6-foot wide area that's going to remain? I'm curious to know whether or not when you're talking about that access area that goes in and around, you're going to cut a couple tree items but still maintain the point value, and you said it's pine needles and duff in that area. Is that area in any of the shoreland protected area?
It is, yes. The shoreline protection zone starts, as you likely know, at the reference line, which is, for all intents and purposes, the water's edge at elevation 504.32. And then the first line in the shoreline protection zone is 50 feet back from that, which is this line here. And that's where we have all those point systems. So this entire area lies within that first, what's referred to as the waterfront buffer.
So your access area that you're going to bring the excavator through, up more, keep going up more through that slot, okay? So that's your duff area, and then it looks like it's at the top of a knob right there, and then to the right, right where that, go up to the right, that looks like it drops off right down, because they have these bars there that show a steep descent going down into the water area. So what I'm thinking about is your access area where you bring your excavator in and you start to disturb that area that's in this shoreland area, and how we would protect that and keep any erosions, obviously, from the water. You're going to skirt off with proper siltation and so forth around the edge, but if you made provisions like laying tarps and plywood down, you would limit the amount of disruption into the top layer of the surface, which would eventually not degrade and wash down over that steep slope. Would you agree?
Well, John, I guess I'd say that the access, we picked the access thinking that was the least impacting area, because you have an existing sandy beach, a short run over some ledge. Now, albeit this area here is forest floor. This area here, however, is going to be, during construction at least, will be encircled with either sheet piling or they'll use some control in the lake to keep everything from going into the lake. When it's done, you'll have a footprint of the building, you'll have a pervious walkway here that goes into the building, and then you'll have this restored walkway. So I'm not sure, during construction, they may feel the need. Everything kind of drains this way towards the boathouse. So I believe this barrier that they put in will capture anything during construction. Pretty small drainage area too. This hillside goes up, but it comes back down the other way. So it's pretty small area draining to that. So I think during construction they'll be fine. But if you're wondering about maybe after construction, I think In that case, this is all temporary impact to be revegetated. This isn't so much ledgy in here. It's really ledge. This is kind of a ledge outcrop that kind of comes down and then back up again. This is kind of a knob.
Yeah, so the reason that I'm bringing it up is because when you mentioned the eventual duff area will just be receded in and it will claim the contaminants and so forth, I'm worried about those eventual contaminants actually sliding down over the hill when you remove those barriers, and then eventually, you know, a year or two later, those fines and those particulates eventually wash down over that slope and end up in the waterway area. That's my concern.
Well, I mean, there's, you know, I think you hit the nail on the head. The big concern would be fines and particulates. You know, I don't, as far as, you know, typical stormwater pollutants from a roadway, heavy metals, that kind of stuff, oils and greases. We don't really, fortunately, it's mainly a rooftop that we're dealing with here. So, you know, nutrient load's pretty light, pollen and leaves that everyone has in their house. But the sediment's important, and that's mainly during construction. And I think by them revegetating around the area, maybe I misspoke. The idea is to have some vegetation grow back up, but in time, in a shady area, which this tends to be, I think in the heavy needle litter, I guess I'm just saying, if you came back out to the site 15 years or 10 years, 5 years from now, you might not see thick growth of grass, and that's okay, I think. I think that's okay with folks. They don't want to see erosion, and then they don't want to see contributions of nutrients or those sediments. And I think that the grass would serve that purpose in the short term. I'm just indicating that I think you're not going to be probably culturing a lawn there for a long period of time.
So from my point of view, I'd rather not see a lawn there, because a lawn means that you're going to have to fertilize and do other things that wouldn't be beneficial. I would rather see those pine needles in that duff area eventually take over again. So I don't know how the board would feel. I don't see. So are you saying that that green area is eventual grass area in this plan? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that the typical stabilization technique when someone has, you know, we have this access, so I think that will be neck down to 6 feet. Could be mulched or whatever. That will be tough to grow grass at the top of, right? Because it's almost pure ledge. But as they drop down, there's soil in here. And as a result of excavating and digging around, there will be some open earth. It will be vegetated, I think initially it would be vegetated. I'm just saying that would not, there was discussion about how it would be restored. In the long-term restoration, I think, is to let it revert back to the needle litter. I think it acts as a mulch. No need to import something if you already have something.
So this picture here that shows the green, is that actual grass area?
No, that's, sorry, if I can
John,
approach the board.
I think if you look at the key here, you'll note that that green area showed as natural woodland.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
just double checking on that.
Yep. No, the green area, I understand that it's a little confusing. The green area is on a plan, we have to indicate what portion of the property will be left in a natural state. So you're required to keep 25% of the land area from this 50, well, it doesn't really show it here because we're actually out of that whole zone, but from the 50 feet back, which is here, between the 50 and the 150 is a 100-foot strip of land that has to be left in the natural state. And that's the green on that, not so much grass.
Okay, so from my reasoning, so everybody that goes by there with a bow or watches on TV, they understand that you've answered the questions that everybody wants to hear, and it's going to satisfy all the requirements moving forward. That's what we want to know.
Yes.
Brad or Julie, any questions? Okay, go ahead.
I guess I would assume that the owner of this property is aware of the relatively fragile ecosystem on that body of water that they're at, and that any increase in nutrient into that area is really an issue. And it also turns out that the town of Wolfeboro has spent quite a bit of money dealing with trying to prevent more nutrient coming in there, down there to Cary Beach and things like that. So I hope that that is something which the owner is aware of, and that this wonderful, beautiful emerald green lawn is not the desired result, because that ends up putting pollutant into the lake.
I certainly understand that, and I don't think necessarily the plans are promoting lawn. It's really the workaround here is just stabilization of the earthwork itself.
What I've stated is not necessarily associated with the boathouse. I am just sort of opining on what this person needs to realize about that particular area, because it's very sensitive and people are trying to keep it the way it is rather than have it turn into a bad place.
Okay, we're also required to refer this to the Conservation Commission for their comments and then consider them. Basically, Conservation Commission really isn't in favor of this dug-in boathouse, but they are allowed on Lake Winnipesaukee. So they also had some comments about lighting, but I'm not sure that that's really relevant to what we're thinking about. Tavis, did you have anything else in your report?
The only thing I would point out is that many of the regulations in the special use permit don't seem to fit this project. There was a comment earlier about, one of the primary functions of the planning board looking at alternative siting. I think one of my discussions with the builder was that actually the DES moved this boathouse about 12 feet from where it was in order to fit the appropriate bathymetric exit vantage or vector for the boathouse. So that one of the reasons the beach wasn't utilized is we talked about the shoals and the sand and narrow entry, but DES actually pushed it closer to the steep slope so that once you get into the water, it's less environmentally harmful than if it were in a shallower approach. Going back to the regulations themselves, I tried in the review to point out that many of these things have been addressed. You have, at least Kathy has in front of her, the wetland permit, the dredge and fill permit, the boathouse permit, the proverbial ringer at the state level, if you will. So the only recommended conditions that I have, should the board move forward with this, refer to the plans as submitted, applicant being responsible for all recording fees. And to speak to the Conservation Commission comments, similar to what Kathy pointed out, basically their comments reflect the lighting regulations that the town adopted this past year, so I don't think they need to be added in addition to the recommended conditions here, unless the board feels so inclined.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, I think we've considered the conservation comments. Also, it seems that this meets all of the criteria for the boathouse. It's received a permit from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. And Tavish, you also did a shoreland permit for the property, the house and the structures.
Yes, the shoreline permit that was originally done did include the boathouse. Why this didn't come forward previously is it was listed as a future boathouse.
Okay.
So not knowing if regulations might change in the interim, honestly, it was confusion probably between Nick and I as to whether the boathouse was coming in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, not looking to bind the town to a previous agreement. The special use permit waited until now. What's important to note is that even with the boathouse, the local permit remains in compliance because that square footage was contemplated in the impervious cover, et cetera.
Right. Okay, and there's no other boathouses will be allowed. There's only one per property, and it's 900 square feet. That's required, and all of the other standards. I'd entertain a motion.
Open the public hearing.
Yes, that's right. We do need to do that, don't we?
First, is it
even though
complete?
there's no public here. Okay.
Do we need to vote on a completion?
Yes.
Move to,
Move to accept.
I will withdraw that motion. I will not make that motion.
I move that the application is complete.
Okay, thank you. I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes, opposed.
Okay. All right, I'll open the public hearing. Any member of the public want to speak to this? Okay, all right. Again, I would close the public hearing. Well, I won't close it until we've had the motion. Does someone want to make a motion?
Move to close public hearing?
Okay, well, he's already given us the conditions. Go ahead.
Are we going to hear about the structure itself?
Sure, if you would like to hear about it. Okay. Okay, could you explain
sorry.
to us the structure?
Single story. I haven't been intimately involved in the structure itself, but single story, doesn't exceed 20 feet, 30 by 30 structure. I don't have elevations or any of that kind of.
It's in their packet.
We have those
It's in the
our-
packet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Want to
great.
say I saw it.
Is there something specific?
Well, I know the Conservation Commission noted the lighting. Could you give us a little insight on what they plan for lighting, if any?
Well, I might refer to the builder.
Nick Laganis, Carroll County Construction. There'll be 6 can lights inside and 1 exterior light by the door, is the extent of the lighting for it.
So that would be a fully shielded, cut-off lighting on the exterior of the building?
Yes,
or
it's over the walkway on the side, so it's not even near the water.
well, my point that I was trying to make, it's fully shielded,
Yes,
cut-off lighting,
yes,
or it's off after 11 o'clock at night if it doesn't provide cut-off and shielded lighting.
okay, yeah, it's just a gooseneck lantern.
Okay,
Thank you.
all set, John?
Yep.
Okay, all right, we'll close the public hearing, and if somebody wants to make a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Do we need a condition about no lawn? I mean, the testimony has been that there's not going to be a lawn.
I don't believe we necessarily have the authority to say no lawn. I mean, what they're proposing is a less than 6-foot wide path, where one of the exceptions in the 50-foot is a 6-foot wide gravel path.
Yeah, right.
They've stated it's going to be naturally revegetated. They probably will put something in the ground for stabilization immediately, just to stabilize the slope before nature can run its course, but
Okay.
I don't think you need
I
Thank
mean,
you.
I would jump in there and say I'd rather see natural ground cover on the area reclaimed.
That's what they're proposing.
So that's what the proposal is. Do you see the need for a condition?
No, as long as they're stating that they're going to provide natural ground cover to the reclaimed area.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Was that a vote on the application or a vote
Yeah.
on John's?
No, it's already.
Vote on
what
the
he's-
application.
That was a
Yeah, it
vote,
was a
okay,
vote
I
on-
was unaware that was a vote on the application. I would have voted no on that application had I
okay.
known that.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
give you my reasons for that, if that's appropriate.
Okay,
I don't expect anyone to change their minds, but I'd like mine stated for the record. The state permitting process does not address a requirement for alternate locations for a boathouse on a lot. It simply works with the application as submitted, and if it feels it needs to move the boathouse a certain distance from the area intended in the application, it will do so, but it will not suggest an alternate location on the lot. It will only look at the application presented to it. Our special use permit application does expect the applicant to address an alternate location if there is one or not. In the absence of particular knowledge, our planning board relies on the Conservation Commission's review to go out to the lot to look around and to see whether or not, either based on the land or the plans, there is a more appropriate alternate location. In this case, the Conservation Commission failed to address the single most salient feature of the special use permit, the location of the potential for an alternate location. Therefore, in the absence of evidence presented by the applicant tonight to satisfy my concerns, I could not vote for this application because I do not think a case has been made that every other location possible for the boathouse has been looked at and declined, and this is the only one left. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like my vote to be recorded as
Yes,
a no.
yeah, yes, right.
Thank you.
Well, it's interesting because I have you as the maker of the motion that Kathy seconded, and then it was a 6-1-0.
I thought I was thought I was motioning for John. So if you want to reopen this,
And
Oh, I think 6-1-0 was fine. It's been clarified.
it's irregular, but that's fine if you want to, if you're the planner, if you want to leave it that way, and you're the chairwoman, if you want to leave it that way, that's fine. But it is
why
irregular.
don't we just vote again? Motion?
I move to approve the application.
Okay.
Seconded.
And seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, very good. Let's see. The next item on the agenda is a voluntary lot merger. This is for lots, we're going to end up with 3 lots being newly created with the following mergers. 223-012 and 013, and 223-014 and 015. And the third one is 223-016 -16 and 223-017. You want to say something?
I'm happy to start with this.
Okay.
This is Point of Pines. Norway Plains is here to address some of this. They recently submitted a plan of land, which is essentially going out and surveying everything that they can verify as the actual property lines. I believe this started out as 16 or 17 lots.
Wait a minute.
So 17 lots total on the deed. This has basically
put-
been a family-run compound for about 100
Could you please
years.
identify yourself?
My name is Steve Oles from Norway Plains.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So what this is doing, if you look at the right-hand-most lot, it's understood by the owners, not necessarily by Norway Plains, that the right-hand-most lot also owns in fee the roadway that provides access to all the other parcels. What you see going across the top of the page is the single-family homes, and on the bottom side or east of the road is the garages that go with them. So that's a condition that's not allowed by today's regulations. You're not allowed an accessory structure on its own parcel. That said, and Steve has a bigger picture of what the result is, the same as in your packet. That is the result. Instead of having 2 lots with a garage, we have 1 lot with a garage in each case. If you look to the top of the page, you'll see a house that has a property line going through the middle of it, a house with 1 or 2 sheds, depending on whose deed you look at, with property lines in between 2 sheds. This is basically, and I say this with all due respect, people that didn't really pay attention to the rules ever in the past 100 years. So tonight's merger is step 1 so that Steve and Norway Plains can actually, I'll say, attempt Some boundary line adjustments that will come back.
Can I suggest that these houses were all built before 1912? So, and I have knowledge of the area, and putting these lot mergers forward ends up making something which is real instead of fantasy.
Correct.
So is this a step on the right direction?
This is
Completely a step in the
Okay,
right
so we're
direction.
just looking at the bottom.
you're looking at creating yellow, blue, and green in this
Right,
picture.
Okay,
I'm asking the planner if this is a step in the right direction.
Yes, this is loosely a step towards more nearly conforming.
Thank you.
There is an issue in that the piece of paper that we were given is this way, and it really looks this way according to that map.
When they merge these, do they have to meet the requirements for road frontage, or how, is this a lot with no frontage, or what is this?
These are all lots with access via a private way. This is not a private road, this is not a road, this is not a town road. This is basically a family driveway that gets you to these individual lots. So with regard to frontage, yes, you're correct. However, they're making 5 bad situations nominally better by increasing the frontage on each of them. So by doing the merger, each one of them is more nearly conforming with regard to frontage and lot area.
We will be seeing same cast of characters back here again eventually.
Yes.
okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Be happy to move to approve the voluntary lot mergers for tax map lot numbers 223, 12, and 13, 223, 14, and 15, 223, 16, 161, and 223, 17.
Okay,
With
and that they're,
conditions as noted by the planner.
okay, and that they're more nearly conforming.
And that because they are becoming more
Yeah.
nearly conforming.
Right. Okay, somebody want to second the motion?
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you next month.
Okay, all
Good.
right. Let's see, we're moving on now to some of the amendments that have been proposed by the planning board. And the first one, this will not be heard at the next meeting, but the one in December, the ones that we're talking about.
Well, if the board is amenable, these can all be noticed for the 15th at the same time, if you'd like.
Oh, okay, all right.
So many of these you've seen before at least 3 times, such as the definition of
yeah.
accession.
Yeah, right, I was just asking a
Yep.
question.
Yep.
Okay, let's see, the first one is the shorefront residential. And I did, when I was reviewing this, looked at 175-67C, and there was a portion left off at the end that says, this provision shall also apply to all projects where pre-existing projects, existing coverage, and post-project conditions exceed 20% lot coverage. So could we add that back in?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other
Yeah, I have a few.
comments?
Bear with me. On the proposed 17567C, top of the second page of this little package of changes, in the text in red, unless otherwise accepted by this regulation, the version that we had back in July had the code officer involved in exceptions. Why has that been removed?
It has been removed because you recall Vaughn pointed out the section of exceptions later on. So instead of leaving anything up to the code officer, there's actually a section in the regulations that speaks to areas that are existing beach or exposed rock, et cetera, that don't have to be replanted.
So we don't need the code officer indications?
Correct. So all of that became much easier by saying unless otherwise accepted by this regulation.
All right. In 4F, delete the trailing word "and." That seems to have been added.
Well, the "and" left because G is proposed to be removed, and then it would go "and H," similar to previously being G and H.
You don't need "and" if you're just going to list them, make H G, and then you're golden, right?
Okay, well.
Just looking at consistency, but that's fine.
Yeah,
I agree.
as far as the G is concerned, the applicant has received a special use permit from the planning board. Are we going to actually remove all of that so that now, when people want a new boathouse, they will simply come in?
Simply meet the criteria A through G, and the special use permit would go away.
Okay, well, I think that provision was put in there to make sure that if there were any neighbors that were concerned about boathouses, that that's why the special use permit is there, so that neighbors would have an opportunity to come and comment.
This is what the three of us had talked about last week, so
No,
if we're going to keep it.
I'm
then-
just pointing out to the other members so that they know what the history was.
Can I make a point that it would not be fair to require an applicant to go through the special use permit just to allow his or her neighbors to have a voice in whether or not they like the idea of a boathouse near them?
Okay, the only reason I brought it up is that I remember that this was discussed when this provision was first put in the zoning reg.
Well, it
So
doesn't-
that's the only reason that I brought it up.
Doesn't necessarily mean it has to remain.
No, I didn't say that. I was just bringing it to
Okay.
people's attention.
I would agree in this case with the planner, and I would agree that paragraph G be removed here.
Okay, and also, I don't think it had been in before, so I thought that it was important to mention it to the other members.
Well, and related to that, on the first page is redefining boathouse.
Yeah.
Currently, the definition is a waterfront building used solely as a docking facility which has a permanent pitched roof with or without sides covering the boat slip or slips. That really doesn't mean anything and is inconsistent with the state rules, so my proposal is to say a boathouse is, quote, as defined and permitted by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. That would make a boathouse the same at the state level and the town level.
Okay.
Definition-wise.
Definition-wise,
And the other issue at the Wolfeboro Waters Committee meeting a couple weeks ago, it was brought up that they wanted dead and diseased trees to not be counted, and that's actually in the regulations now in a couple places. Dead, diseased, or unsafe trees, shrubs, ground cover shall not be included in scoring.
Were you reading to, Kathy?
I was reading from the existing shorefront regulations.
Okay.
I was just trying to make a point. And then again, it is listed on the last page, or next to last page of the regulation. Tavis, do you think that this needs more work? Because, I mean, should we take it back to the Wolfeboro Waters and point out that these wording are already in here about the...
The sense I got from Wolfeboro Waters is they wanted to make sure, I think the concern isn't what's in or not in the regulations at present. They had a concern about what qualified as a diseased or unsafe tree. So if the board wanted, you could come up with a parameter, based on evidence from a state licensed arborist, forester, or what have you. Right now, the decision is basically boiling down to anyone that has a tree removal company making a determination as to
Okay, and so
whether it's
not-
disease.
It's not being counted.
It's not being counted as required coverage, no.
Yeah, right. Okay, well,
So, go ahead and finish.
go
on
ahead,
that.
John.
I'm more in line with the boathouse situation here. I didn't realize it was in front of us to discuss the boathouses, but I don't think boathouses should even be allowed on Lake Winnipesaukee or in the town of Wolfeboro myself. I've always said that all along. I didn't go against these people tonight because we've permitted them and they're allowed use, but Kathy has said in after meetings, should we not allow them, or what do you think? And obviously, I don't think they should be allowed. So to redefine the definition, to me, would be not permitted.
Any other thoughts?
Are we going through all of these, or are we just,
Yeah, well, we're
How
just
are we going?
just doing the shorefront right now.
okay. I don't see, I'm sorry, as far as I'm concerned, the changes that we've seen tonight, which mirror the changes we saw in July, are good enough to craft a revised ordinance to go to public hearing on the 15th. That's what I would recommend. The issue of diseased and disturbed trees, we can leave it stand as it is currently. The issue regarding paragraph G in 17565C4, I think has been resolved. Any other questions I had on that particular ordinance are answered to my satisfaction.
Okay, would you, somebody want to make a motion that this is ready to go for a public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, motion has been made
I'll second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not staying.
You don't
Abstaining.
abstain. Okay, and one abstention.
Madam Chairwoman, can I ask the planner a question?
Sure.
Can we prohibit boathouses on Lake Winnipesaukee if the state permits them?
I'm honestly not sure how the town did it on Wentworth, but I can look into that for the board.
It would be good to know.
Okay.
My gut response is, I think so, because it's more restrictive than the state. But I don't think you'd want to make that move without having a forum or something to that degree,
Okay.
especially in November.
Okay. That's something for next year.
On the bottom of page 2, I don't mean this to be confusing. What I did was show you what is currently written in section 175, 143 through 145. The point of that is to simply...
Wait a minute, are we going to talk about definitions now? Or?
We can.
Yeah, oh, okay, well, that was the next item on the agenda.
Oh, I see what you're doing. You're not, okay.
Yeah, well, right,
Now I'm following.
She's following the agenda.
Piece of paper.
You should be careful how you write your agendas, Kevis.
Yep.
Okay, all right, definitions.
So accessory dwelling unit, you've seen it before. Affordable housing is not changing, it's just moving from 175-31 to the definitions section. Boathouse, we previously discussed. Conditional use, or instead of just defining conditional use or special use, I put conditional or special use permit. They are literally the same thing at the state level. Short-term rental, we've discussed that. And yield plan, the only change is to remove the term market rate units. Not on the agenda, but next on the page is the warrant article to remove C2.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
all I have in that
That should be
section.
self-explanatory.
Okay, and the only question I had was on the affordable housing. I mean, that definition that we're showing is in the inclusionary zoning right now.
Correct.
Does this affect the section for the not-for-profit
No.
affordable housing? Okay.
No. I do have
And that
one,
definition stays.
I do have one comment on the boathouse definition. I think it would be useful if we inserted after the words permitted by for the following RSA 42A and the NHDES administrative rules.
Why is that change needed?
Well, right now, we're simply permitting by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, period, which is all very well and good. They are the umbrella organization. But if we were to refine it to RSA 42A, that's the statute that essentially sets up the Wetlands Bureau and the DES and all the other organizations that run the show. And the NHDES then makes its own administrative rules, some of which I wrote. And those are the rules which are applied to things like boathouses and wetlands and stuff like that. Just a matter of refinement. It's not necessary, it's just nicer, in my opinion.
Okay, Tavis, as far as the boathouses are concerned, if somebody wants a boathouse now, you'll be doing a shoreline permit, right?
Correct.
So that the issues that John brought up will be addressed.
Correct.
Okay, anything else on the definitions? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion that we move this one to public hearing? And that's going to be on the 15th? Public
If
hearing?
that's what we want, yeah.
Yep.
So moved.
Okay. Okay, motion's been made. Somebody want to second it?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Does this include C2?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, right. Okay, and anyone opposed? Abstentions? Okay, now on to the multifamily.
So we talked somewhat at length about the changes to multifamily. Again, that's on the bottom of page 2 into page 3, what the board had talked about doing. And then the subsequent pages are simply moving those changes respectively into the base zoning districts. So where it currently says requirements for the VRR and GR in all commercial districts except CBD and Wolfeboro Falls, and you see where I went through Village Residential, Residential District, General Residential, Bay Street Limited. And that's just moving multifamily into those sections.
Okay, when we have the public hearing on this, are you going to show each district, or are you going to show it just in the multifamily section?
Well, the motion, I mean, the warrant article will read something akin to delete section 175, 143 through 145 in their entirety, moving the subject matter into the respective zoning districts,
okay.
blah, blah, blah. But then this would be in the voter guide so people can see
Okay.
this is coming out, but it's going in each of the districts.
So
Thank you.
to that point, I think we're running a slippery slope when we put it out to the voters if we don't put everything out in front of the voter so that they can read what's being changed and what not being changed, because I know people are voting on stuff where they don't know what they're voting for if they didn't go into the voter's pamphlet and read it. So I'm not supportive of that. I think everything that we change should be right there in front of you when you vote on it.
In the ballot?
Yep.
It
You know how many
seems,
pages that would be?
I mean,
Just one particular article?
Well, I'm sorry, there's other articles that we don't, and it's important information, and people like, well, I didn't know that. I didn't see that. I had no understanding of it.
okay, well, we do put it on the town website, the entire, right? Yeah, okay. And then we have a voter's guide that we submit to people that we say would be available to the public. So,
I would suggest that the initials VRR, GR, CBD, whatever, could be defined relatively concisely. But, when you just look at letters, unless you are looking at zoning plans, so you have no clue what you're talking about. So I would imagine, and I don't know whether we need to go perhaps as far as John wants, but I think there needs to be some way to say what those regions are.
Well, I think we should adopt an official zoning map so that we could,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Right, whatever, it's,
I mean,
I think the board understands what's being done. Given that, I think the board can safely recommend what is being done to public hearing on the 15th. But I would ask that the planner, when he makes his presentation, make it really clear to both the board and the public what's being done.
okay, all right.
So
And it will be done, it'll be on the website finally, right? For the deliberative session, and we will have
I mean,
copies available.
previous places I've worked, similar to what John is asking for, the town report would include all of the language. I agree, this in itself would be half of a town report worth of just one warrant article. But in short of doing that, the only thing we can do is to say, this is what the language currently says, this is the half step the board made to make some revisions, and then they decided to move all of it into the respective zones.
Right, and I think the shortened version we've done it this way for the last couple of years, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I think.
So I would wonder, in addition to, sort of as a medium step, John, I think, correct me if I'm mistaken, you're proposing to have the full text of the new ordinance included on the ballot, is that right?
Yeah, I'd like to, again, so when people go to vote, not everybody goes to the voter's guide, they just go to the voting booth.
Well, and to be clear on that, the ballot is always just a question. You know,
I think John, what you're proposing, though, is that the question should be phrased such that here's what we're proposing and list the
Yes.
whole text of it.
Yes.
so what this board did very recently was the change in the parking regulations in the site plan review, where it said, almost by chapter and verse, I'm making this up, 17542A, 17543B, 175, and then as follows. So that's very similar to what would be done here.
So I would suggest that whether or not we go with John's proposal to print the full text, that we also include sort of a layman's explanation, hopefully just in a couple of paragraphs, of what we're proposing to do.
And why don't we get some input from the public hearing on the issue?
Okay, and then we can,
And ask them how difficult do they find it to follow, and then perhaps follow their guidance. In 175-145, this will be page 3, requirements for CBD and WF districts. Paragraph D, we have currently by special exception ? And in our discussion on the 19th of July, we had thought about deleting the requirement for a special exception.
Correct.
It's still here.
Well, it's there in the changes to multifamily. I don't believe you have in front of you CBD and Wolfeboro Falls districts.
well, multifamily has to go, I mean, that's treated a little differently. It's not just as of right.
These are
Or is it?
conversions of existing dwellings.
Wait a minute, maybe it is.
175-145D.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you look at the second to last page on CBD for conversions, I believe conversions is where it comes up.
Yep.
You'll see conversions, existing residential may be converted.
May by special exception be converted is what I read.
No, on the very end of the handout.
Oh, Okay, well, any multifamily now has to go for here.
A
For
what?
what? Yeah,
So,
right, and will that still be the case? Yeah, okay. Oh. Yeah, okay, okay, I was thinking more of the multifamily in the GR. I mean, that's under permitted use.
Okay, well, Tavis, then, thank you for that elucidation, but on page 3 of the current handouts that I have requirements for CBD and WF districts. I have paragraph D. In the second sentence, I have, by a special exception, still present, and that we've discussed in.
Correct. What I did
deleting in
was, what I
July.
did was print what last came to the board and then show the result in the end. Subsequent to that discussion, special exception came out.
I'm going to go back to John's suggestion and ask to have a complete, I'm a little bit confused at this stage, and you're just going to have to bear with me in that respect.
Well, that's fine. I'm trying to make it very simple. I think toward the end of the document, what you have is the language the board last discussed coming out of July.
That's fine, but
Okay, well,
where's my heading for CBD? If that's the case, I do not have Central Business District. I beg pardon, it's not in bold, I missed it. I'm going to third John's motion.
yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to discuss something here too, but
okay, well, yeah, just a sec.
We have multiple appearances of converted to up to. Those up tos have to be removed. Okay.
Okay, so basically, if I could go back to the residential district, I mean, we're now saying that multifamily dwellings are permitted use. That doesn't mean site plan to me.
Any multifamily has to come to
a site plan.
site plan.
Okay,
All we're removing is the special exception to do something the ordinance already allows you to do, i.e. multifamily. So you still need to meet site plan.
You all set?
Because it says at the end of each of them, 4, such conversion shall be considered a change of use and require site plan review by the planning board. It's number 4 under residential, general residential. But that's only the conversions. So
Yeah.
converting from an existing single-family to multifamily requires site plan review. If you want to build a new multifamily, you build a new multifamily.
So, are you all set?
well, no, I'm still not concerned here.
So if you look on page 3, under number 4, such conversions, and it said to 3 or more units, which by default is multifamily, so we changed, such conversions shall be considered a change of use and require review by the planning board. That's what it currently says in the VRR, GR, and all commercial districts other than CBD and Wolfeboro Falls districts.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I'm a little concerned with 175, 144, where it says A, and then it's got unit number, multifamily dwellings with no more than 5 dwellings units per building are permitted. I mean, the VR district is a village residential district with town water and town sewer,
That was the point I was trying to make.
and I don't think that, I mean, I'm not going to support a ban on multifamily dwellings in that village residential district. I mean, that's where we're trying to promote.
This isn't a ban. This is getting rid of the language that says you can't have more than 5. If you have the acreage and you want to do more than 5, so be it.
I know, but that's the point I'm trying to make. If somebody has a lot and they have a half-acre lot and the setbacks are they meet the setbacks, they meet the lot coverage, I mean, why can't they have it?
If they have a half acre, they'd get 1 unit. The density is 2 units per acre.
No, I don't agree with that. No, I mean, you have a half-acre lot, you're in the village residential area, you have town water and town sewer, you should be able to have, you should at least be able to have 4 units on that lot.
Okay, that's not what the rules say now. If we want to go back, we can do that.
That's not the rules that say.
That's not what the rules say right now, no.
So what do the rules say right now?
Page 2 at the bottom of the page. Multifamily dwellings with no more than 5 dwelling units per building are permitted. The density shall not exceed 2 units per acre.
So it doesn't even talk about a half acre then?
Well, no, you'd take an acre and multiply whatever fraction you have, and you'd get 1 unit.
So basically you add up with a single-family residence then?
I'm not saying I like what it says.
know.
I'm just trying to show the transparency. What
Well, I don't
the
like
new
that
language
either.
says, what the current language says. All
I
I
don't
did was
like-
move it out of a section that refers to multifamily and move it into the base zone.
So if you're in the village residential and you have a lot that's on town water and town sewer, you should be able to build it out. We're trying to get housing in our town here, and that's the area that we're trying to get it in.
Not by the way the law is currently written.
Yeah.
So how do we, I mean, give me something to chew on here so we can make it, so we can have, improve that.
Well, right now, the way it reads is that multifamily dwellings are permitted.
Yes,
In the VR, in the R district.
but with a minimum of 1 acre. That's what he's saying.
No, it's 2 units per acre.
2 units.
The density that the town adopted a long time ago.
So I'm just thinking about
Again, this goes back. If you look at the average lot size in the village residential, probably 80% of the zone is a half acre or less.
Okay.
So if you want to put multifamily on that, the density number has to go up. You remember how much fun we had with the public when we explained that if you look at the average lot size being half an acre, being able to get to 3 units on that.
Yeah, but we talked about 30 units on a half acre. We didn't talk about a reasonable amount, which
No,
is
we didn't
4.
talk about 30 units on the half acre. We talked about 30 units per acre. That was in the CBD where you're less than half of a half acre or a quarter acre,
Okay, so
where the
let's-
net result would be about 4 units. That didn't just made up, that was responding to the board. And then the board said 30 units, because everyone heard 30 units per lot, which is not how math works. 30 times .02 is what? 6. That's the density in CBD, but people got scared with the 30 units per acre. So all I'm telling you is currently you have a multifamily, which is actually kind of insane when you think about it, because multifamily allows 2 units per acre, but you can also build a duplex in each one of these zones.
Okay, so let's get something done here with something that's practical. So if you have a half acre lot and you're in the village residential, that you should be able to have 4 units on that lot while you still meet your setbacks.
I'm happy to go back and look at the average lot size and figure out what multiplier would get you 4 units in every village residential lot.
In a half acre lot.
Well, that would be 8 units per acre.
Okay?
Can I suggest something? That we're not talking about what this is the thing that we're supposed to be looking at, that we were talking about moving the definitions around, not changing them today, so that these can go to be voted on to make sure that everything matches up. The density bits and stuff, that's a different dog for a different night.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Julie. in that
different
we're-
thing.
The initial discussion was the structure rather than the content. How the ordinances are organized rather than what they actually say.
Okay.
And if we
okay.
don't move these things around where they're supposed to go, we can't do what you want to do.
Well,
Because we didn't do this part first.
Okay, but I was reading the density first, and then I was going to the units per acre after that. So it was,
It's fine, you can yell about it, but not tonight.
excuse me?
I said you can yell about it, but not tonight, because we're doing these
He
tonight.
wasn't yelling, we were just having a discussion.
Yes, she was speaking figuratively, and I'm sure the rest of the board knows that, too. I second what Julie had to say, or third it, beg pardon.
Okay.
So if the board, if it would make the board more comfortable, I'm happy to add some more explanation on the November 1st meeting, showing where it's currently written, what the changes are to those sections in 175, 143 through 145, and then how that translates into the shift into the individual districts.
You just need to be able to elucidate it to the public and to those members of the board like me who got confused.
And I promise I will go get the 2 up-tos fixed.
Okay, I'm still a little confused, because you're talking about changes, we're going to keep the multifamily section.
No, that section goes away completely. 175, 143 through 145 goes away. The intent of it moves into the base zoning districts.
Right.
Because what's happening right now is nobody.
Okay, well then, that's what I'm concerned about. I mean, are we going to allow multifamily dwellings just as of right?
Yes, they currently are. 175, 143 allows it by right now. The only thing that really changes is
No,
this.
I thought we usually had a site plan review.
Kathy, I think that the
For conversions, yes. Conversions of single-family to multifamily require site plan.
Okay.
I will go back, though, and say that, the CBD means a lot to some people, but not a whole lot. And so I guess I would end up saying that it needs to be the Central Business District, parenthesis, CBD.
It's actually the commercial district C1 central business.
Anyway, all I'm saying is that these districts, instead of using the letters, we need to have something which is verbiage which people can understand.
so write out the acronyms.
Write out the acronym. I don't, and the point being,
You all understand, this is what the regulation currently calls this section, right? There is no definition of central business district. There is no.
well, then why is it being used anywhere if it's not somehow defined?
It is defined. The point is, if we have in our public hearing some way of expanding the acronym so the public and us understand what VR means in reality, that's as far as we need to go. The language of the ordinance retains the VR and the CBD where necessary as a shorthand.
I think the most salient point for people to hear at the public hearing is the ordinance already says this, but you have to know that this multifamily section that's buried at the back of the book exists. And the point is to bring it up and let people know that it's a permitted use.
Isn't CBD a
Zoning district.
marijuana
Yes.
derivative?
No.
No, Peter, it's a central business district in Wolfeboro.
I'm sorry, but they're
CDB.
I'm wrong. All I'm saying is you need to put the words in there rather than just CBD.
And that's what I'm telling you is right at the top.
Okay, fine.
I don't.
I apologize for being stupid.
Can I move we
Well, let's make sure that no one else has any questions.
okay, I'll hold my motion.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Do you want to move ahead with this? That's the motion that Mike is going to make, or not? Okay, all right, no questions.
So moved.
So what are we moving ahead with?
We're moving the language as presented tonight, which we have seen previously in July, to public hearing on November 15.
For,
Sorry?
the wording for what?
I'm sorry, for the multifamily reorganization and spreading around through the various districts, as presented tonight. What you see on pages 2 to the end of the handout on multifamily tonight. What you're looking at, all the way to the end.
Okay.
All of that. Because we've seen this before at least once in its entirety.
More than once.
More than once, then, thank you. And can I point out that there are more than 2 up-tos? There are 9 up-tos?
Because they all match. Like they're supposed to.
Yeah, they should.
And one further question to Peter's point a moment ago, are the acronyms defined somewhere in the ordinances?
That are going to be presented to the people on the ballot. All you have to do is just
Yes,
say what
they are.
Central Business District it
They're
is
front
instead of
the
CBD.
zoning
They are right here
regulations.
in the definition. Here's Article 5A, ROI, Residence Office Institutional Overlay District. So I'm assuming that each
If
of the other
I am
ones is
voting
two.
on something which is a question, do you approve the change in requirements for CBD and WF districts? And I don't know what a CBD is, or maybe the WF district is. Couldn't you just put the words in?
Yes, I'm trying to figure out why we're having such trouble with this when for each district in the packet is listed Wolfeboro Falls Limited Business District, not the acronym. Center Street Route 28 Mixed Use Business District, no acronym. South Wolfeboro Limited Business
Okay,
District.
can I then see what is going to be presented to the public as something which is going to be a warrant article?
Yes.
Where is it?
Well,
It's
it's
going
not
to be a
done
warrant
yet.
article question with this following it. To see if the people will vote to support the following amendment.
Which
To
is?
Delete 175, 143 through 145 in its entirety, moving the content thereof into the respective zoning districts as follows. Village residential, residential, general residential, Wolfeboro Falls Limited Business District, commercial, and it will list all the definitions. The same thing we just did with the parking regulations 2 years ago.
Then after the definition or the words for that district, could you put in the CBD if it's the central business district which you're talking about?
Yes, but I will not be putting acronyms on the warrant article. Same as there are not acronyms in the packet in front of you.
You know, expansions of acronyms.
There,
That's fine.
we can meet after if you'd like to. I'm struggling with
All I am
understanding.
trying to do is make this so that people understand what they're voting on. And if you're just looking at CBD, what percentage of the population knows what that is unless you write it out?
Understood. I hear you.
But you're not going to
That's
do
the old
it.
stuff. We're getting rid of.
It's already written.
You should have made this two pieces.
That's what I'm trying to
Page one,
understand.
two,
I'm
and
trying to
three is
figure out
old
where the
stuff.
disconnect
Where
is.
is it written?
Go to your very last page.
Here on out is.
Very
the
last page of that.
This one?
Yep, very last page. No, that's the second page.
That's an issue by trying to save paper.
Okay? But why is it not in the thing that we are going to approve? That's in the last page. That's not what we're
Yes,
making as a warrant.
that's absolutely the change you're
Is
recommending.
this the warrant article?
That's part of it, yes, along with
We're
everyone
not
just
doing warrant
before that.
articles yet. This is being moved to a public hearing. Once we go through with all of that stuff, then a warrant article will be written, assuming that we want to move it to the warrant.
Okay,
So I've got a motion on the floor.
okay, motion is, I'll second the motion to send this to public hearing on the 15th. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstain.
Yes.
Oh, okay, one opposed and one abstain. Okay, is that correct?
Yep.
That is the way it turned out.
Okay. All right.
Look at it again next week.
Dun, 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 dun.
Peter, you were
Okay.
correct, the marijuana thing is CBD.
Yeah, it is CBD. Cannabidiol.
Okay,
Not that I've ever taken cannabidiol.
okay, can we sort of move on? Okay, the email that you put in from Laura.
Yep, so the short answer for the board was a question from Mr. Thurston about whether the board has the ability to make somebody upgrade a right-of-way. The short answer is no. Unless it is impassable or damaged during construction in a way which does not impede the ability to access the property, needs to be repaired. But other than that, it's a private property dispute between the two. Second paragraph goes on to say, likewise, the town has no right to regulate private roads or access to private roads outside the normal approval process. What normal approval process is somebody requesting a subdivision on a private road, during which time the planning board would look at the individual lots and the proposed road and what they're proposing for ditches, stormwater conveyances, et cetera, and how the properties will relate to one another. Beyond that, the town cannot issue driveway permits for connections to private roads or otherwise regulate the private road. So Hopefully that clarifies the question.
Well, I'd like to say that wasn't, the second one was never asked.
It was actually, because that was the second question. So if you go back to the question asked, in the instance that the planning board or ZBA under the current language authorizes issuance of a building permit on a lot with no frontage, town or state road 674:42A, but said lot has a deeded right-of-way, can the board require improvement and/or restoration to the private right-of-way? For example, construction equipment damages private right-of-way during construction. Board has authority to require, quote, put it back the way it was, end quote, and/or improve stormwater as part of the permissions. So that was addressed in the response, paragraph 1, where the answer is no. By extension, does the planning board or town have the authority to regulate development on private property or private roads, driveway permit issuance, et cetera, beyond what action the planning board may have taken as part of the original subdivision? And that was affirmed as no.
So I guess the next question there is, and it's not maybe the planning board, so it basically is the selectmen, because then, again, that goes back to the 674-41, where the authority was given to the selectmen by the RSA.
Unless the project went to the planning board and was approved as a subdivision on a private road, then it relates to what the planning board approved at the time.
Anything else, John?
No, I don't know where we ended up. We have criteria within our town that you're saying is no one has any authority.
No, no one said that. We said we don't
No,
have.
you just did say that.
No,
because if
we
it's not
have
the
no
planning
authority
board,
on
then it's not
private
the
roads
selectmen
other
who
than
has the
what
authority.
The planning board and/or the town has one crack at the apple. If the planning board approves a subdivision for a piece of land that's going to have a private road on it, the planning board's jurisdiction is to make sure the lot size, frontage, and interface with the private road is duly addressed, and those are the standards any lot thereon has to be designed to and built to. If there is a private road that existed slightly after God was a child and somebody petitions the town to have the town take it over, that's where the selectmen come in under 674-41.
Right.
But in particular cases where there's a private subdivision with a private road, the town does not have the ability to issue driveway permits or regulate the interaction with the road beyond what the planning board looked at the time of subdivision.
But if it was not looked at the time of the subdivision, then who looks at it?
Going beyond that, I think would arguably be considered municipal estoppel because the town had the opportunity to look at it and failed to address it. It's just like issuing a building permit and going back after the fact and saying, oh, but I'd also like you to add a garage. Or I'd like you to change those windows after you've already approved the windows that were approved.
And we need that kind of diligence that you exercise.
Well, we do, but I don't think it really answered any questions, honestly, to tell you the truth, because you have lots out there that weren't approved by the planning board, that are pre-planning board subdivision approval, that you have an RSA based by the state, 674-41, which gave the authority to the selectmen to issue the building permits on the private road. And
Except the town adopted 674-41-2A, which allows an exception to that. Currently, it's under special exception, but the planning board's looking at making that a conditional use permit process. All this memo is saying is, no, you can't go back and make them improve the right-of-way. But you're only granting them permission to use that right-of-way to establish frontage, if you will, under 674-41.
so what you're saying is only based on an improvement. These questions are based on an improvement, then.
Look at it another way. If you want to go drive around and dig up your yard, you have every right to do that. The town can't make you fix it. That's basically what's happening here. Just because you have the right to drive over Kathy's land to get to a back piece doesn't mean the town has the ability to make you make improvements on Kathy's land.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about digging up your yard. We're talking about the town issuing a building permit on a
Right of way.
surface right-of-way area, path, way, access whatever it is, and somebody has to have some accountability, because again, you have residents in your town that are affected by the fact that somebody is getting a building permit from the town. The town's giving them the permission to build, and when you have other people that are affected by that permission, somebody needs to be accountable for when that permit is issued, because you have abutters that have a stake in the game too. Not only the person who's getting the permission, the other abutters have a stake in the game.
So again, the question was, but said lot has a deeded right-of-way. Can the board require improvement and/or restoration to the private right-of-way? The town can't require that if the right-of-way is damaged during construction in a way which does not impede the ability to access the property, the private right-of-way be repaired.
Yeah, that's the first one. That's the first one. I mean, again, I'm more interested in gaining the full picture rather than just piecemealing this as what you're just saying right there. It doesn't really do any justice to anybody what you've got for an answer and ask for a question. Again, we need to be able to solve the question.
Is the question that was asked not the question you asked to be asked?
It is, but I'm asking you as a planner, how do we solve the problem? I mean, again, you're taking it as a defense that this is the way it is, and we're not finding any solution.
Well, the solution for a private road is for the property owners they can take action if they're concerned about something going on a property. I mean, that's kind of the way it works.
Well, no, the authority was given to one body under the RSA, which was the selectmen. The selectmen were given the authority through the state's RSA, and then
To approve a building permit.
to approve a building permit, that's right, which basically gave the property owners that abutted that building permit the right to have consent to say, look, these people are building and gaining this building permit, and they're going to affect our property on the upstream or the downstream. And those were legitimate concerns that were legitimately applied to or applied during the 674-41 process. Those were legitimate. Then the town of Wolfeboro removed those to give it the right to the planning board to make that decision. But under your question and answer, the planning board doesn't have any right in that process. So you have to go back to who has the authority under the RSA, which is actually the selectmen. And that's what I'm trying to get you to work with me on, to say, okay, somebody has the authority.
Okay, well, we're not gonna work on it right now.
That's fine.
I don't think. Okay, well, question has been asked, and we can continue this conversation some other time, but let's get through the public hearing issues. Okay, Linda, did you want to say anything?
We have the minutes first.
Yep. No, go ahead.
And Linda Murray, first of all, one of the things that I think would have helped you in this process would have had page numbers so that you could say, go to page 4, go to page 3. I found sitting here in the audience, I was trying to figure out where you were, and then there were I understand there, the ones that are going in front of the, on the ballot are in the back in red, and the ones in the front we were looking at were stuff that you had just worked on. So I got confused in some of that. Second of all, I agree you're going to need to be more specific. I watch all of you struggle to understand what's going on here. And I think it's going to be very important that you can be very clear to those who come to the public hearing or those who try to vote on exactly what's going on here. I'd like to go back to the question of diseased trees. The reason that came up in front of Wolfeboro Waters was that they felt that there were lots that were stripped of just about every tree on it, and the explanation was they were diseased trees. And that's why Wolfeboro Waters wanted the planning board to look at, is there a way to define what a diseased tree is? Because they were really concerned. We've had a bunch of, at least two, in which this has happened, and then what gets planted are small little trees, and we can't quite figure out how this is happening, and the explanation was they're diseased trees. So that's what we're trying to get clarity on.
Okay, thank you.
I would suggest that maybe the Conservation Commission should be enlisted to come up with either a definition of what a diseased tree might be, or at least give guidance to the planning board that we could use to then begin developing our own definition of a diseased tree.
Right. I had talked to Tavis about this, and we need to reconsider it once we're done with everything for this year. But I don't think, I mean, you're right, we do need to do more research. And so we can put that on the work program for next year. Okay.
I'd like to make comment about the dead, diseased, and dying trees. What we know out there is we have a ton of bittersweet, and when we go to lakefront properties and somebody has a very nice lot around the lake, and there's dogwood, and there's other native vegetation, landscapers are given the okay by the engineer to pull all the stuff out because it's wrapped by bittersweet. So therefore, then it becomes just go ahead and clear it all the way out right to the waterfront, because there's bittersweet wrapped around these vegetative items, and they're choking them off, and now they become dead and diseased. So that becomes the problem right there in itself. I mean, that's the number one issue, bittersweet.
And you have to take it all.
Yeah, right. Okay, minutes from October 18th. Anybody have any concerns? I do, under the discussion items, when Jody Hutchison was talking about his 50 Laner Street, I did ask a couple times that parking be considered for the hotel use. So if we could just insert that. Any other issues?
Yeah, Kathy, under the same point that you just mentioned, I don't recall any mention of office space in that structure.
No.
Didn't really discuss it, did we?
Yeah, he talked about the commercial, on the first floor. Restaurant was going to be underneath, and the commercial.
Yeah, retail and office space, that's in his presentation.
Oh, okay.
We didn't go very far into it, though.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Move to approve as amended.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Okay, folks, thank you very much.
Move to adjourn. Oh, sorry, second.
Okay, all
All
in
right.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, I wasn't. I'm not going to argue with you.